Well, thanks so much for joining us. Oliver, it's great to chat with you, and this is kind of fun. We have people here in the audience. We have people that will listen to this conversation eventually or maybe watch it. So it's definitely a little bit more professional than the podcast I normally host just in my bedroom at home. But yeah, Oliver, it's great to chat with you.
Lovely to meet you, and thank you so much for having me on this panel. And it's the second time in 2 years. Last year with the wonderful Gretchen. So I hope I don't repeat too much from last year, but thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, today I'd love to talk a little bit more about Vortic and what you're doing with that, and really just talk about innovation in that space and how, things have changed in terms of how people can consume and enjoy, traditional fine art, through a digital medium. I think, there's so much potential in that space, and we've already seen a lot of growth there over the last few years. But I think a good place to kind of start for our listeners or audience who haven't actually experienced the Vortic platform, tell us, what is Vortic exactly, and how, give us a taste for what it's like to experience an exhibition through the platform.
So Vortic started in 2016 with an idea that I wanted to put someone in front of whoever it may be, in front of an artwork. That for me was the starting point, because we represent, at the gallery, we represent 38 artists or so, and every time I would see their work, it would be on Instagram, or I'd have a collector call me and say, "Oh, I've seen a work, but is there any way of sending a better image?" And it was always had to be done on an email, and it was just never very, it was just not very, it wasn't allowing us to represent these artists in the best way. So I set about trying to create a platform where I could put a collector or anyone who wants to experience a piece of art in front of that work. And then it all really went from there and brought so many opportunities for what we can do. But in terms of Vortic and the experience now, well, we're getting to a place where when we first started building this in 2016, we always envisaged that it would take 6 to 7 years to be in a position to actually do it properly. There's so much complexity around the technical side and the hardware as well. So we at the beginning we wanted to target purely the VR headsets. But we realized quite quickly that no one had the VR headset, so we can make all this amazing VR content, but no one could consume it because no one had the headsets in there at home. So we deviated and launched as a mobile app and as a desktop or a web-based experience. So very difficult to give someone a nice experience of viewing art on a mobile phone, So
I would say it's kind of like almost playing a video game, sort of a first player video game. You can walk around and really, replicate walking around that exhibition and getting close to the art. And there's also, of course, some additional things like you can hear the artist actually talk about the work and different features that we'll get into in a little bit. I feel like it's been interesting in the art world and just the trends in terms of viewing art in a digital way. I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago, as Instagram became a bigger tool, I feel like there were debates. Is it, is this good for the art world? Is it bad to kind of consume art this way? What are your thoughts, about like the positives or maybe any negatives and just like the overall, how much it's helped or hurt the art world to be able to experience art digitally when you can't view it in person?
Yeah. So, Instagram is fantastic because it's so instant, it's this instant access. It's so easy to, people to walk around, take pictures. But what you lose is so much about that artwork itself. And it's also such a quick experience. So you're just flicking and flicking and flicking. And we wanted to create something where you stop, you can sit in front of that artwork or stand in front of that artwork and take your time to, experience it in the right way without all of this, all of the distractions that Instagram or other social media platforms bring. So it's it's a very immersive experience, Vortic. And it's sort of, what we saw at the beginning was the average duration of each session was between 6 and 12 minutes, which for us, for an exhibition, digital exhibition, was like, we were so impressed with that, the time that people would stay in the exhibition. I probably spent 3 minutes trying to work out how to walk around, but
That might be longer than, experiencing the exhibition actually in real life.
yeah, but what it does is, I think it's one of the longest durations of, the digital experiences that you could really hope for. But then in VR, I think, which is where we've always wanted to head, and where I've seen people in the exhibitions for half an hour, 40 minutes, you're in with the headsets on, so they take it off and they're very dizzy, but still they're really enjoying it and they can really engage with the content, which is, for me, one of the beauties of that experience. It's like being there. And I fell in love with the VR side of it because it's the first digital technology that actually you put the headset on and it creates memories of being in that space. So when you take the headset off, when you think back at it, you think, oh, I was stood in front of that artwork. Yeah. And you can't have that experience with any other digital medium. So it's really, that's the beauty of the VR side.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure you've become kind of an expert in terms of VR technology, even just outside of, beyond the art world. But yeah, so tell us a little bit about that. Where do you think the world is technologically in terms of like VR sets and how prolific, they may become and how far away that is? So yeah, so people can actually, I know, for example, at the booths you have at art fairs, you often have, a VR headset that people can experience, but how far away do you think we might be from, just regular individuals having them in their homes? And because I feel like that's a really exciting world where people can then experience art fairs and exhibitions, from their home if they're not actually there in person.
So this is I could talk about this a long time. So I try and get as many points across as I can quickly. But the VR headsets, when we started in 2016, we were under the impression that by 2020, 2021, they would be really advanced. Everyone was talking about, 8K, 16K quality in VR headsets by 2021. It just never happened. And a lot of that to do with was the competitive nature of the industry. It just didn't really evolve. Oculus became really the only player in that market. And they didn't have the chips to power these headsets. And Apple have come along and they've absolutely changed the game in terms of the quality which we expect as an audience for art. And the excitement around the industry now is back it disappeared for a while. People stopped talking about it.
Yeah, I feel like it did kind of disappear from the conversation. And yeah.
There's always going to be something else that takes over. In this case, it was AI, and everyone's talking about AI. But the Apple heads, and by the way, that can be combined. The VR side and the AI side can be combined. But the Apple headset, from the initial, feedback that we've had, and from our developers working with Apple, it's actually the feedback has been this is going to revolutionize the whole VR industry. So I'm actually so excited. I can't tell, because we created this amazing software, but the hardware has always held it back.
Right.
But just to go a little bit further from that, and the Oculus 3, which only released a couple of months ago, it's the first headset that has full color card through. So it's allowed us to utilize what we built, which was this mixed reality side. So when you're on the Victoria Miro booth now, at Victoria Miro Projects here at the fair, we've got the artworks on the wall, but you put the headset on and you're not fully immersed, but all of the artworks on the wall change to other artworks. So it's fed into what the platform was built for, which was sustainability, and it's trying to move the industry into operating in a more sustainable way. So we can, we've halved the shipment that we've had to do for the fair, and it's actually the feedback so far has been incredible. But I keep saying wait until we have the Apple headset next year, because that step up in quality is going to be huge. But there's issues. The Apple headset's $3,500, the starting point.
Got it.
Whereas the Oculus headset is around $400 to $500. So there is a question about, okay, how many people are going to have this headset home? Do we push into both stores? Do we try and be exclusive on Apple? Do we try and be exclusive on Oculus? Because Oculus is where the volume is, but we see that Oculus is more going to be for like gays. And, you don't need the most amazing politicians to play a game. It's still going to be fun. But to look at art, you'd be the best policy. But we don't want to. It's difficult with that price point for Apple. That's set.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume it's eventually going to come down in price, just like any other new technologies. I mean, I remember when flat screen televisions came out and they were incredibly expensive, and now they're very cheap. But something you touched on in your last response about sustainability, I want to talk to you a little bit more about, because I think that's a big issue in the art world. A lot of people in the art world care about the environment and are thinking about how to make the art world more sustainable. And I feel like a lot of conversations generally have revolved around shipping and how expensive it is, and the crates that get used once and then get thrown away. But I feel like maybe, people during those conversations, they haven't talked a lot about, what you've addressed here, which is being able to, experience exhibitions in a different way. And tell us more about how important sustainability is to the Vortic kind of mission, and how you feel like you are and will be addressing it.
So it's fundamental to Vortic, because the whole idea of Vortic started after I just had 2 children and started thinking, the world that they're coming into. And I come to an art fair and experience this everywhere this week, but we come to the fair and there's just a billion crates everywhere you can look, and it's like, okay, we know this is going to happen and we still want to do the physical fairs, but how can we reduce this a little bit? How can we bring a lot of these? We've been working on a big sustainability report that I'm going to release early this year with the GCC and the advisors, looking at where the impact is. And it's really the big works, the sculptural works, that really takes a lot of that, it eats up your carbon footprint for each fair that you do. And how can you reduce that a little bit? And so it might be that you still have the same booth, but we have a couple of large sculptures that you would have shipped, but in mixed reality. I don't want to, it needs to become more like a hybrid. And I think the use of the digital within that can really help. If we're going to try and meet some of these targets that we're setting and the art fairs are setting, a lot of people, they say, we're going to set these targets, but we've got no idea how we're going to get there. So we just want to be one of those tools that can be used to help people to get there. It's not the be all and end all. It's like there's so many other things that we can do on the sustainability side. Reusable crates. In every area that there's forward momentum. We're trying to ship more on sea rather than air. And then Vortic is a tool that can be used as part of that ecosystem in moving the industry towards a more sustainable way of operation.
Yeah, I actually had a chance to sort of sneak into Basel, the fair, yesterday and see. I mean, I feel like the fair organizers of the galleries do a great job with kind of hiding these crates so you don't actually see them and how many there are, but it's just extraordinary. Yeah, it is. I want to also ask you about how you're currently using Vortic and the platform. Like, I know when I get my emails from Divya at the gallery, there's always a PDF and a link to Vortic so I can explore the exhibitions that way. But tell me about, how you're using it kind of at the gallery and kind of in conjunction with, physical exhibitions, as well as versus, sometimes you put on it, I think, exhibitions that don't actually exist even in real life. They're just digital.
Yeah, so we found so many ways of using Vortic, because it really does it. When you start thinking about it, opens up so many opportunities, and it's actually quite difficult to harness them into one thing. So I'm very much the personality, I do all of them, Yeah. So the gallery is like very much like we put so much effort into making these exhibitions, and you're often left with just an installation view of the, and it's months and months and months of work, not just by us, but by the artists, the initial conversations about doing the show. And for me, Vortic is very much an archiving tool. So 100 years' time, people will be able to walk around those exhibitions and experience them how we experience. So that's the recreating the action physical. Then we looked at, we started something called Vortic Curated, which was really what we were finding was that the commercial galleries, they really struggled with the amount of work that's needed to do the digital. Everyone got very used to like these instant pictures, Instagram,
right,
you're ready to go. Whereas Vortic's, you have to stop, it's probably 3 days work of putting a show on, which for a lot of galleries that operate in a full capacity was almost too much. But we were getting such a great response from the artists that we saw that artists wanted to show on the platform. The audiences really loved the consuming of the work digitally, so they didn't need to travel and travel. But we were finding that we needed to find a way of bringing it all together. And Vortic Curated, for me, was an amazing idea that brings, great curators to be able to use the software that we've created to work with artists from around the world and put on these amazing exhibitions without, which could be either purely digital or a hybrid. So a lot of the curators that we work with, they do have and a lot of the art world, it is very traditional, and people do want the physical element, and we've accepted that. Instead of trying to do everything purely digital, it does become very much like, how can we harness the digital? How can we improve, or not improve shows, but how can we add to shows by using the digital? So, for example, at the moment, we just opened a show in London with Miro, who was one of the great curators from the National Gallery, Renaissance curators. And she had a lot of work that she wanted to bring into the exhibition, which was in museum collections from all around the world, and they wouldn't let us touch them because it's like Michelangelo, Da Vinci works. And so you walk into the exhibition, you view the exhibition with all the contemporary artists, and then you put the headset on and you can see all of the old, historical works in mixed reality. And then you press, everything now is on the VR headsets, it's all finger-based. So we press play, you hear Mina talk about the relationship between the historical works to the contemporary works which are in the exhibition. So it's doing things like that. How can we, you just layer, because on Vortic we layer content. It's all about, you can put everything on there that you can't put in a physical exhibition. Voice, sound, music, everything. And then the third thing I would say is the artist projects. So there are a lot of artists that I've only really found out recently but using VR technology. And one of them being Fischl. It's one of the great American painters who I didn't expect to, when he told me he'd been painting in VR, it took me by surprise. So we've just coming to the the fruition of a 2.5-year project with Eric, where he's painted in VR. We've exported the works into Vortic, we've animated the works in Vortic, and then we've extracted the works and turned them into bronze sculpture. The first one that we're showing tomorrow at the Plaza. So that for me is like a completely different site, but it's still very much harnessing the VR technology and in a very different way. But there's much excitement around it. One more thing in terms of how we're using it. We have recently started a year ago Victoria Miro projects. We closed our main first space during the pandemic. We lost a space that allowed us a little bit more opportunity, and at the gallery we see so many young artists who we love, but we never really have the chance to work with them. So we started last year with some younger artists who have done purely digital Vortic exhibitions and responded so well to it, and decided to make a whole program, Victoria Miro projects, with artists that we love, that we want to work with, but we don't represent. And we still have a platform now to show them, to work with them, to help them at an early stage of their career. And it's been a real pleasure having a first physical booth here with Victoria Miro projects this week on Terraces.
Yeah, no, I think it's great to see the booth here because it kind of touches on that hybrid model you were describing, where these are artists that did these digital exhibitions and now you're actually showing them in person as well. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about artists, and especially these kind of younger artists you mentioned for the project who are doing exhibitions with you that are purely on the Vortic platform and aren't in real life. Are they excited about that? I know it's because they're younger artists, maybe they're more comfortable with that. What are the conversations like with these artists? And are they, excited, knowing that, the exhibition won't be in real life, but it will still, exist in this podcast?
So yeah, the conversations I think were more difficult at the beginning when it was rather unknown. But what the artists have seen, first of all, is the quality of how their work looks in the digital. It's not like just posting a picture.
Right.
This is actually creating an exhibition. The visitor numbers that we are able to get through the digital far exceed the physical. So the digital numbers can be 3, 4, 5 times higher, and that for the artist is something that's really important. Everyone wants their work to be seen, and that really helps us to have that conversation. So they've got two things going for them. It's not just a website with their pictures on it.
Yeah.
There's a full experience where they can, they can layer we can contextualize the work really, really well, because there's so much content we can layer. So we make a film with them, we make audio, and you go into a Vortic and it's a whole experience. It's not just this flat website which we see so often and flick through very quickly. And that would it gets easier and easier with the artists, and they all seem to absolutely love it. I mean, they tell me they love it. So, but
Sure, yeah.
that's I actually genuinely think they do. They do, and we always try and show 1 or 2 works physically where we can, because it is still really important to people to see artworks in person. However great the photography is, you might always miss something in the digital. That will get better in the next few years, but at the moment we're using photography, and there's limitations to any photography. So there's that would be my one point, is that we don't completely eliminate the physical. And for example, with Cindy Phoenix, who we worked with this year, we did a studio visit, in during Freeze LA at her studio. It was same with the artists in London. We're sending collectors to the studio so they can experience the works in person as well. So again, it falls back to a hybrid. It's not purely digital experience.
Yeah, and if you think about collectors or curators or anyone who experiences art, outside of the gallery realm, I mean, I remember, auction houses, for example, they all of a sudden stopped producing catalogs for the most part. Everyone sort of freaked out, and then now that's okay. And, people now, use social media, they consume art. How's your conversations been with, collectors, people experiencing these exhibitions? What's been a learning curve there, and what percentage would you say, feel comfortable kind of exploring an exhibition like that versus, maybe a more static kind of PDF, of course, if they're unable to visit the exhibition in real life?
Yeah, we found that at the beginning there was definitely friction. 3D technology for people that have grown up playing video games is actually relatively easy. But, my dad, for example, when I've asked him to use it right at the beginning, it took him time to really sort of know how to move around. And for me, that was a perfect test case, because I said as soon as my dad knows how to use it, then everyone will be able to use it. So now we're in a position where the navigation is much better. It's much easier to find what you're looking for, and it's much easier to put yourself in front of an artwork and zoom into the areas that you want to look at. And again, it gets much easier with VR, because there's no controls. You're literally just walking around an exhibition. So we're heading in the direction where we will eliminate a lot of this friction. Doing anything on your mobile phone, it takes time to get used to. But the collectors have always, for me, the great sign is I send the work a PDF, and so many collectors come back to me and says, "Can you put it on Vortic for me?"
Yeah.
So, and now we send them whenever anyone buys the work, we send them a Vortic room with their work in it, so that they can build up their collection. They can start placing up more works in the room. They can start building their collection on Vortic as well. So the more you use it, the easier it becomes. The problem for us is that we keep finding easier ways that we could toy with the navigation, and then everything changes. So it's a little bit for the end users, because it's so experimental technology.
Yeah.
We often think, let's move it all to scrolling navigation, or let's do make a different action. And so it does take time. We realize it's frustrating for the user, because once they got used to it, we tweak it a little bit, but we're only tweaking it for the better. And I think we'll get to a point where we've tweaked it and we're happy with it, completely happy, and everyone can get used to that form of navigation.
And so Vortic, it's, closely tied with Victoria Miro Gallery. Do you kind of view this as like a competitive advantage kind of platform, or do you actually want, even your competitors, other galleries, to ultimately be, embracing it and being on it so people can experience, different gallery shows on the platform?
It's very much a collaborative platform. When we started it, I did build it with the gallery in mind for what we needed, but always thinking, well, if we build what we need, then surely everyone else is going to need it. And then we launched it. We launched with David Serman. We've had 230 art galleries make exhibitions, 55 in this for Untitled Art Fair. So I do think it's very much a collaborative platform. And I do think we see the friction with the industry, of course, because it does take a lot of work. So Victoria Miro, we have our own digital tier that not many galleries would have invested in because it is like an undertaking to do it. So I do think as the technology evolves, we will see more and more galleries using it as their capacity and their willingness to do the digital increases. At the moment, vast majority of galleries, commercial galleries, they want to send the work out, sell the work, move on to the next one. But I think that will change in the way that we've changed and we've evolved. And it is an archiving tool. It's a tool to represent our artists in the best way possible. And it's a tool to really allow the collectors to experience that work. And maybe if we can save one or two travel, trips by anyone, then you've done a good thing. But yeah, it's built to be a collaborative platform, not only for galleries, but for museums, for artists, for collectors, and it's ready for everyone to use. And we're whoever wants to use it is very, very welcome.
And so I know it's hard to make predictions for the future, especially about technology, but since you're very familiar with the platform as well as technology, what do you think potentially 5 years out could look like in terms of how people could potentially enjoy and experience art in a digital fashion?
It's a very good question. I think about it a lot.
Unfortunately, this is being recorded, so we could go back 5 years down the road and chat, but I won't hold it against you if it's not entirely accurate.
Yeah, I mean, in an art fair context, I have this dream where we turn up, there's nothing on the walls. People just put on a headset and they view all of the work on the wall, and then it means no shipwrecks, and it means really sort of operating in a really sustainable way. But I do feel that we are moving towards a more hybrid world, towards a world where mixed reality is going to become part of everyday life in many different things. But for me, the AI is a huge part of what is possible with accessibility to people. So when you walk into a gallery or a museum, they can only put one text on the wall, and who is that text aimed at? Is it the elderly visitor? Is it, your PhD student? Is it your 10-year-old? And I think that we're going to be able to really personalize people's experiences when they come in to a gallery or to a museum and make it relatable for them, because I think the art world struggles with that a lot. And I think this technology, and especially AI and VR as a combination, can really alleviate some of those. But also, there's so many artworks that people never get to see, whether they be hidden in museum vaults, whether they've been stolen, whether they're in collectors' homes. And I really feel that by using this technology, we're going to be able to give anyone who wants to experience standing in front of a work of art, that experience, wherever that artwork may be. And that's the real beauty that I see for the future, is sort of bringing all of these artworks out of hiding, essentially, and bringing them to everyone to experience, to enjoy. Because that's really what is important, that people get to see and enjoy all this incredible history of art, really, that is hidden really away.
Yeah, and I think about, whether it's art fairs that are on the other side of the world, or just, museum shows in a different place where you already didn't have a chance to see them, with maybe in the future with enough technology in the platform, you can experience it and really feel like you're there enough to, if someone asked, did you see the show? You said, yeah, I did. So I think that would be pretty cool if we get to that point.
I mean, ideally, every show that's on, we go on Vortic, we are able to see it. And we can tick it, we can, do tick. I think it's people are scared of it because, they'll take away all my ticket sales. But we can find a way to, to do ticket sales so people do found, and the museums do still able to raise revenue from those sales. Because there are concerns. People are scared of technology we do wares, especially in the art world. People are very much, they want to stay in a traditional way of they've known it for so long. But we're here to sort of help them bridge that divide and not be scared of it and make that leap to actually, because we understand traditional art world very much so. We're coming from the traditional art world and we're not trying to, eliminate that traditional art world at all. We're trying to improve it in new ways.
And so before we go, I just want to ask you about the Vortic Prize for Untitled. Tell us a little bit about how that came together and what that entailed with the exhibiting galleries participating in that.
So we launched our new, we call it our CMS system, our content management system, where galleries are able to create exhibitions this year. And we wanted to give the galleries access to the platform without too much assistance from us and see what happened and see how they used it. And we had an incredible response. We had 55 exhibitions, all very, very different, but all really, really special. I think you and I both experienced that.
It was fun, yeah. It was fun seeing how each gallery took a different approach and utilized the different features.
Exactly, and I think it's been, for us, it's been so rewarding to see people use the software that we spent so long creating to do things that, they know how to do, which is exhibition making. And it's very much an exhibition making platform. So to see it in practice with Untitled and to have the amazing support of the Untitled team and a lot comes down to the communication with galleries and actually letting them know that something like this exists, because all fairs, not just Untitled, all of the fairs have struggled since we've come out of the pandemic. Everyone's like, oh, digital, I'm sick of that. So I will go, but Untitled have really embraced the digital side and they focused on it, and it's been such a rewarding partnership and one that I hope will continue, because to have that enthusiasm behind it allows those galleries to do those amazing shows, to know that it actually exists. And yeah, the 3 standout booths that we have all decided on with, I don't think they'll announce here, but I know will be announced on Thursday.
Well, Oliver, thanks so much for chatting with us a bit more about Vortic and just the art world and how people are consuming art and digital platforms and what the future may hold. And for anyone who hasn't checked out the exhibitors, they can do so on Untitled's website or on Vortex. Appreciate the conversation.
It was so much. Good.